Do you want to write it? Sorry, we're in the middle of a thing here. Welcome to FLATMARE. This is the demo episode of a podcast that will be doing a deep dive into the nightmares you might have had from being in a house or a flat share. My name's Lesley. I am going to be your host for the podcast, and I will be revisiting old flatmates of mine who were not they were not nightmares to me. They were absolutely lovely experiences, but that's an oasis really in a desert of horror stories. And so my good friend Aisling, who I've known for about 12 years now, and we met because we lived together and didn't really know each other. We were
mutual friends,
which is usually the best way. If you're going to try and get a housemate, that's usually the best way, right?
Yeah, they are actually.
Yeah, a little Irish friend of mine called David. Shout out to David Kelly. Can use his full name because I'm not going to say anything horrible about him. He said, I know this really mental bird from Northern Ireland. And he said she's absolutely amazing crack.
Oh my God.
And you should consider her. It was 50-50 in that house where I had some lovely housemates. Like my friend Elwyn moved in. There was a guy I met in Australia backpacking. He was a nurse. He lived with me for a bit. After Elwyn, there was David. And after David, there was you. But after you, there was problems.
Yeah, and I enjoyed hearing the problems, because it was funny. Sometimes you're like, what?
It was mad. I had to see a counsellor at some points because it was so intense. And what happened was when you were moving out, you were like, I need to move out by January, and I don't want to leave you in the lurch. And you gave me loads of notice, and I was like, oh no, that's fine. I'll put an advert out on Spare Room. Yeah. And there was I can't remember the girl's name, but I had a few people coming around because, you know, people really get in there quick if they think it's a good address.
Yeah.
And then they'd see your tiny room and they'd be like, it's a 3/4 bed and the boiler's in there. And I'm like, I know I can't do anything about that.
Yeah.
But especially my room was a big room, but I was like, well, I'm paying 150 more a month because of that. And I'm managing all of the stress of the bills and the landlord, and I'm the only name on the tenancy. So basically you could do me over. And what I didn't realise was people were going to do me over. So I lined up this girl, interviewed her, and didn't take a bond. And it was coming towards Christmas. And 2 days before she was supposed to move in, i.e. 2 days before she's due to give me, I think it was £800 inclusive of bills.
Was there no deposit in that 800 even?
I didn't ask for a deposit, did I, to hold the room? Because
so not even.
I'm an idiot. I was an idiot, right? 2 days before, she's like, I can't move in, I'm not moving in. And I kind of went into like a meltdown because at that point I was living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, I'm still living paycheck to paycheck, but like
it's not like, I'll just cover it until
I didn't have an extra £800 to be like, oh, brilliant. And that was my fault because I didn't think about getting a bond. And so I was working a lot. I was supposed to be going home to Liverpool for Christmas. And this guy, I'm going to change his name, but this is when we're going to call him Rodge. Rodge from Cork is all I'm going to say, because if I say his name, people are going to be ringing in from Cork going, I know that guy. People might still ring in and say they know that guy. But anyway, I meet this guy last minute just before leaving for Christmas because they needed to move in the day before. They needed to move in like the 1st of January or something like that. And so I met this guy in an Itsu in Regent Street. It's like a speed date. Like you just meet a person.
It is like that because even when we had viewings in places I lived after, people had a slot. You came for your slot to view, and then next
people try to smooze you as well, like because if they really
that's how we got caught out with ones. First impressions were very good, but
this is what happened with Rodge. So I meet Rodge in the Itsu at the top of Regent Street, and he was really funny. He was really funny, really quick. You know, he's like he had the Cork thing, like, you know, like the chat. He had like super chat. And his story was that he actually was a family man. He worked in recruitment for Kelly's, and he had a partner and 2 children who were based in Scotland. He sold himself as a Monday to Friday.
Okay.
But the thing was, I was not in a position to be picky because I was going to be 800 quid down for Christmas, right?
I know, and you have to just take what you can get, especially at that time of year.
It was mad, right? And he was like, I don't need to he said, I can give you the deposit like tomorrow, and I won't be back down from Scotland until like the 4th of January when I have to start back at work. And I was like, great, he's a family man. At most weekends he's going to be going up to see his kids in Scotland. This is going to be perfect. And, you know, it got me out of a hole, right? Because I was like, it seems like we're going to really get on. Brilliant. And then we get to January and Rodge turns up, and he actually turned up quite sweetly. He had some flowers and a bottle of wine. And like, which I'd not asked him to do, obviously, but it was a bit weird because it's a man-woman small flat house share, right? So there's like a management, like, I'm sure he felt weird too. Like, it was like, what do you do? That's a polite thing. And he was trying to do a polite thing. What went wrong with Rodge was things that seemed to be beyond Rodge's control, in the fact that he had some issues, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So he turns up and I was like, I'm going to make dinner. So I had made like a Thai curry, which I used to make them all the time. But anyway, so I made a Thai curry and we had a good night and we had a couple of glasses of wine, and he was good crack, as they say in Ireland. He was really good crack. And so over the week, Mr. Chatty, he was going to his job that first week. And I said to him, are you going to Scotland this weekend, on the first weekend? And he was like, no, he said, do you know what? I'm really going to resist doing the accent, because
I would just resist.
I do. Yeah. All right. Good advice from an Irish woman. Yeah. Resist it, Lesley. Sometimes I can't. Sometimes it happens. And I'm not saying the good. I can't help it.
It'll just be like a bog standard Irish. Anyway, continue. No, I'm not saying you, just generally when people do it, it's like me. It doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean?
What about you?
See, that's what I mean. It's not even like, it's probably not even a Cork accent.
I can do a Cork accent, like. It's a bit like, isn't it?
No.
Oh. Okay. All right. I won't do it. I don't want to alienate people before I've even started. Anyway, so Rodge from Cork decides he's going to stay. He's staying in the flat this weekend, and I'm like, okay, you know, like it honestly, no flies on me. I wasn't bothered. I was working. I was going to be working early shifts, like I was a shift worker. And on the Saturday night, he's getting ready to go out to see a special lady friend, like a mate. He kept stressing that it was a mate. I have my suspicions. Married? Yeah, well, not married. He had 2 children with a woman up north, and they were like a couple.
Oh right, or he was in a relationship. Yeah, okay. I just want to clarify that.
Or
again.
was he? Or was he a little candle in the wind whose partner didn't really want him to come home? We'll get to that. So basically, he's getting ready to go out that night. And the things I'd learned about Rodge that week, as we were getting to know each other, was, you know, he loved his kids a lot. And he said that he had I think it was like an 8-year-old and a 3.5-year-old, a boy and a girl, an 8-year-old boy and a 3.5-year-old girl. And he said that his son had Asperger's. And I was like, okay. And he was kind of like over explaining the Asperger's. Like, I've got friends who've got Asperger's, or 1 or 2 friends who've got it. So I was like, okay, so I said, what's what challenges has he got? And he was like, no, you wouldn't think that you wouldn't think he had it. He's like the most popular kid in his school, in his class. You know, he loved this kid so much, right? And he was just like, he's just great. Like, you wouldn't know. And I said, well, if you wouldn't know, why did you get him tested for Asperger's? Yeah. And he was like, well, sure, like he got into watching the washing machine when he was about 18 months old, and we couldn't get him away from it. It was like his favourite TV programme, and he was very off the cuff funny like this, right, this guy. So I was like, okay. But as the week went on, like, I'd started to notice a few things about Rodge where I thought, I wonder if he has it. And I know it's not very PC to go around what do you call it, like not analysing, but
like diagnosing.
Like diagnosing other people's conditions. Yeah. But like, we got to a point where at one point I had to ask him.
Oh really?
Yeah. So Saturday night, I'm staying in. I've got early shift on Sunday and Monday, and when I say early shift, I've been work at 6 a.m. So I wasn't going out, and he was getting ready to go out. And I was in the middle of the 3rd series or the 4th series of Breaking Bad. I am gripped watching this episode like come off. And at the end of it, like a child like cycles in this desert.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then he gets shot.
Yeah,
and
that's
like
right.
To the horror of Walt Whitman. Walt Whitman?
Walter White.
Walter White. Walt Whitman's a writer, wasn't he? An American writer.
I don't know.
Anyway, the episode finishes and he goes, Jesus, that was good, wasn't it? And I'm like, yeah, it was really good. And he's sat there with his coat zipped up, and he's just sat on the edge of his seat. And I'm like waiting for him to leave because I want to play the next episode. Like I had a couple to catch up on. And he's like, will you not start the next one then? And I'm like, And like, Rodge, like, listen, like, don't start Breaking Bad in the middle of a series. Like, you need to like get on one, and you need to.
He had never watched it.
He'd never watched it, so he was like, where can I watch them all? And I was like, I've got a couple of the series on a hard drive. I'll lend you it. And I go to turn my head back to the TV, and he's still there. So I'm like, what? And he'd go like, well, could you get me a now? Like, I was like, now? Like, you're literally on your way out for a night out. And he was like, oh, but I'll take it to my mates and I'll see if she wants to watch it. So I don't know whatever plans they had at this point, but
they're about to change.
They're about to change. So I go, okay, mate. So I go into my room, get him the hard drive, and go, enjoy. And then I went to work early the next day. I didn't see him Sunday night. I was like, nice. There's no housemate. Don't know where he is. He's out for the weekend, kind of thing. I'm in work at 6 a.m. the next day. So it usually means I get home at like 1 in the afternoon. And it's Monday. And as I'm getting in, I'm knackered because it's just working early shifts is tiring. And as I come up to the top floor flat, you remember the top floor flat, and you open the door and then there's another set of stairs.
Oh, yeah.
I can hear the TV.
Uh-huh.
So he's been living in the flat 1 week, and I can hear the TV, and I'm like, that's really weird. So I open the door, and he's lying on, remember the futon, the famous futon company futon? He's lying on that. He's got his little blanket over him, hands behind his head, stretched across, and Breaking Bad's on TV. And I'm like, what? Hello? Like, I'm kind of like, the door is open, I'm like, are you right there? And he looks up and he literally does this, he goes, oh,
oh my lord, he rang in sick to work.
He rang in sick because he wanted to watch Breaking Bad.
Oh my God.
So he was lying on the sofa, and I was like a bit bemused because we're only in week 1 of a 2-month experience here with this guy. And so I'm like, oh, okay, a bit. And you have to go past the futon to get into the kitchen. And I go into the kitchen, and there was like this little disarray of cooking, like ratatouille had been in there. And there was like a pan, a little mini bottle for one, a little mini packet of risotto rice, and he'd made himself a risotto for one.
Oh,
while he was like at home having, and I thought
he had planned a great day. You ruined it for him by coming home from work.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, but right. So then I'm thinking it's still quite funny and a bit weird. Like, it's a bit weird, but okay. Everyone gets a duvet day. Aisling, he didn't go into work that week. I kept coming home from work, and this stranger that I'd only known for 1 week, was on the sofa every day. He phoned in sick for 3 days until he
watching Breaking Bad.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And like,
what age was he?
He was probably about 34 at the time. And like,
okay.
And I was like, I've got a problem because there's a grown man that I don't really know.
I know, but you're hogging the living room too, watching Breaking Bad.
Yeah, no, it was episode after episode. Like, it didn't. And then I'd be like, can we like stop this for a bit to like watch something else? And the thing is, I've got a good sense. I like to think I've got a good sense of humor, so I was kind of finding it funny. But I was also like, that's intense. Right?
Yeah, that would annoy me.
Well, then, also, like, he'd get really like drunk and like so we'd take him to the pub. So I took him to the pub a couple of times to introduce him to other friends of mine. Like, remember Ian? And we went to the Abbey round the corner in Camden, in Kentish Town. And I was like, this is my new housemate, Rodge. His name's not Rodge, by the way. I'm really trying to remember to call him Rodge. And then my mate Ian was like, oh yeah, nice to meet you. How you doing? But Rodge couldn't keep his attention on the conversation with us, because every time there was another woman or someone on another table, Rodge would be like trying to like bring strangers into the conversation at the table.
Like, only female strangers?
Yeah. He was like on the pull. He was on the pull. And that's a bit kind of distasteful, because you're like, I know you've got a partner and kids. You've told me about the partner and kids.
Randy Rodge on the pull.
Yeah. Also, he'd get really drunk and then start singing ooh, ah, up the rah, ooh, ah, up the rah, in the local pub around the corner. And like, it's the kind of humour that like it makes you have the nervous laugh, because you're like,
oh my,
and then he'd be like, I'm just joking, and I'd be like, I know,
but come on, like,
you don't know who's listening.
I'm also, what age are you? Do you know what I mean?
But he was like an absolute. I'd let chaos into my flat, right? So the next weekend, my best mate Lisa. Now she was engaged. She's married now. They've got children. She was engaged to a guy also from Cork. So I'd said to her, before the whole week of him being off for Breaking Bad, I've got a new guy moving in. He's actually from Cork. He seems really good crack. Can't wait for you to get to meet him. By the time she come, I was already being like, this was like week 2, and I was having like severe kind of internal worries about him. And she come down on the Friday evening, and I was like, we're just going to go to the Spread Eagle, around the corner from Wilmot Place. And he was kind of like looking for an invite. And in my head, I was like, why haven't you gone to Scotland? I was starting to turn into that subletter that was like, you said you weren't going to be here.
I know, because he's created an expectation where you think, oh, I'm going to have the house.
But he's still paying rent. Like,
I know. It's a catch-22. It's just a wee bit like, it's just annoying.
Well, it was just kind of like, what's the story? And also you keep trying to chat up loads of other women. The other thing was, he could not keep his attention span on anything. And so when we were in the pub, because he didn't really want to talk to my mate Ian and he wanted to try and chat up women, it was like his head was on a rubber band. like someone was like pulling his head back to the other women.
It's really annoying talking to someone like that. Do you know what? Not as in that they're perving, but they're not. It's horrible, actually.
Like, we're not like teenagers, and we're not in our 20s. We were in our 30s. Right, like
maybe
we're all
he
adults.
settled down young or something, and this was him. Like
probably. Well, I said, "How did you meet a Scottish woman?" And it was on a holiday. They were like a holiday romance. I think she got a lot more than she bargained with. Is what I'm thinking, because
she's probably sent him down to London.
Yeah, well, who knows? So then,
clear her head.
That Friday, he's like, "Can I come to the pub with you and your friend Lisa?" And I'm like, "Yeah, okay." I'm still thinking he's quite amusing at this point.
Yeah.
Even though when I told David, I was like, my new housemate moved in. And then he's just phoning sick all week to watch Breaking Bad on the sofa. And David Kelly just could not stop laughing about it. He thinks that's the most hilarious thing he's ever heard, especially with the risotto for one. Like that he had on his, just like he's like lying there on the sofa, risotto for one, watching Walter White, getting his kicks. So then we go to the pub. He causes a bit of mischief because he's singing his ooh-ah up the rah songs at the end of the night. And we're like, shh, stop it. Like, stop it.
Is it because he was in an Irish bar he was doing that?
It's not even really officially an Irish bar, you know. It looks Irish, but
I notice in London so many of the Irish bars sell Thai food for some reason too.
That one doesn't anymore. It's become its own restaurant. PMO Thai. Highly recommend. If you want to sponsor us, please sponsor.
Oh, sorry. Anyway, carry on.
So we went to the pub, and so she's there thinking she's making a good like friendship connection with him, going, oh, my fiance's from Cork, blah blah blah. Oh, I've been that way. Oh yeah, you know, because when I go over and visit in Cork. And then we get home, it's the end of the night, and like me and my friend are sharing a double bed, that's the only place I can put her on other than the sofa. And she goes to brush her teeth, and he follows her into the bathroom and says, do you want to share my bed with me?
Oh my God. Yeah. Was he really drunk?
It doesn't matter.
No, I know, but I'm wondering, is that something
drunk.
The next day?
He was drunk. So I'm in my bedroom. She comes in, shuts the door firmly, and she's like, God. He's just asked me if I want to get in bed with him. And I was like
no respect for her fiance, no respect for her, no respect for his part, like no respect, like no.
And so she was. So then we were like, I was like, I don't know what to say. Like, I was so shocked because I wasn't expecting that, right? So then we're both in bed the next morning. Like, we kind of woke up early, and we wanted to just hang out in the flat and watch TV, and we would have probably just had like a slobby breakfast and then done something. But we were lying there with the duvet under our arms, and my mate's going, I hate him. She really did not like what she did. She was raging about it. She was like, I hate him. What are you going to do? And I'm like, I don't know, he signed a contract. I was like, he signed a contract. He signed a contract, and she was like, I was like, Anna made sure I got a bond. And she's like, yeah, but that's well out of order. It's disgusting. It's well out of order. And I was like, I know, he's a lot. And I said, Lisa, listen, I said, like, he told me that his son has Asperger's, like he's being officially diagnosed with it. And I wonder, and she was going, 100% he's got that. And I'm like, I know, but you can't go round. I mean, my brother's got a joke, like sorry anyone in the neurodivergent community, but my brother's joke, especially with me with ADHD, is you shouldn't go around casting Asperger's. So I shouldn't go around casting Asperger's, but I had a strong suspicion that Rodge. The other thing I didn't tell you was, you know, his son was called Podge.
That's those Irish puppets, Rodge and Podge.
That's because it's not the real names, but their names did actually rhyme in real life.
Oh.
So that's my stand-in names for them. But Rodge and Podge, Rodge had a Podge, that was his mini him. And so when we had a minute together alone, I was like, Rodge, you know, you were telling me about your son. And he was doing this. He was like, eyes were like this way, like looking down his nose this way and that way, but not at me. I said, do you find it really hard to like concentrate on things that you don't want to concentrate on, that you don't want to pay attention to? And I said, you get a bit of tunnel vision. He was like, yeah. And I said, okay. I said, you know, with your son having Asperger's, has it ever crossed your mind you might have it? And he kind of just went, yeah. So it's obviously a thing that he's like, it's a challenge for him in his life, right?
And maybe the people around him have like flagged up certain behaviours. Do you know what I mean?
I think everyone who knows Rodge in real life knows exactly what's going down at Rodge, because he was like, he was chaos. He was a chaos man, right?
Yeah.
And I'd let in our tiny flat that you'd lived in as well, I'd let chaos in. And so I was managing it. And then basically what happened was he never went back up north. And I got the impression it was because his partner had enough on her plate with his son with Asperger's and her young toddler daughter.
Yeah.
And he would have been like having another toddler.
I know. It's just like, you're not a help, you're a hindrance in my life.
Yeah.
So what, he never went back up to Scotland?
So while he was living with me, there wasn't one trip where he went back up north. And I was like, okay. And then there was like, I'd come home from like a late shift at work at like 10 or 11 o'clock, and there'd be like Coke lines left on the dining table.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, if you're going to do drugs in the flat, like you could at least clean up after yourself. Like, why have I got to look at your snotty, like...
I know, but just clean it up.
And
like,
also, what is happening with you, man? Like,
yeah.
So then we were coming to, I was doing a sponsored marathon, like a half marathon in Brighton. The only one I've ever done. Probably won't be doing one again in the future. And I had to leave to go to, he went out on a night out on the Saturday night, and the marathon was on a Sunday morning. I had to be up again early, like 5:30, to go and meet my friend at 6 to get a train to get to Brighton to get there for the race. And we were there all day. And we ended up staying for pints afterwards. And yeah, it was a big achievement. I didn't know how stiff I was going to feel the next day, but we ended up getting home in February. So this is however many years ago this month. And I let myself in the flat with my friend, and the living room absolutely stank of ale, like booze, ale. And I was like, what? And the ash window of this Georgian house was just open, like wide open.
Oh, completely.
Like, because we were like the 3rd or 4th floor
Yeah,
up.
and you slipped.
He obviously thought, well, no one's going to break in. And I'm going, Rodge, no answer. So he wasn't in his room. And I'm like, and then I look at the sofa, and there was this artfully draped blanket on the sofa, and I snatched it away, and there was this like massive splash of lager all over the sofa that he'd like childishly tried to hide.
Oh my God.
And I was just kind of going, what the fuck?
That's so annoying to come home to.
Annoying is not even close to how I felt that day, because I was so trapped with this man, right? So I kicked my trainers off, and then as I walked across the carpet, squelch, the whole carpet was covered in booze. And it turns out that like he'd obviously, when I got up at 6 a.m, he hadn't come home. And then when I'd left for the race, he'd come back with a party of people, and they partied all day in the flat, in the living room, spilling ale and doing whatever else they were getting up to. It really reminded me of a 20s flat, you know, this attitude and this idea.
That's the thing. He seems a bit old for that, you know.
And the carpet absolutely reeked. And then he just happened to, he turned up with a random that he'd found in the pub. He burst into the living room. He was mid-session. Me and my friends in our half marathon running gear are like, I actually did lose my shit. I can like suppress, but I just was like, what the fuck are you doing? And he was like, what? And then like, I think because he felt embarrassed from his new friend that he just picked up in the pub like 10 minutes before, that he's just acquired, who looked really embarrassed and was like trying to like, you know, jazz shuffle out of there, like, I'm just gonna leave you, yeah, call me kind of thing, and left.
So cringe.
And I was like, what are you doing? And he was like, well, I pay a lot of money to live here. This is my home too. And I was like, yeah, but this is your second home. I have got nowhere else to live except here. This is where I live. And this isn't a student house.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're going to have to, like, I hate saying this, but you've managed 6 weeks, but you have to move out. You have to.
He's not being, it just sounds like he's not very respectful of people around. I don't think it's intentional. I think he's just a wee bit clueless or something.
Do you know what? It wasn't intentional, but there was nothing normal from the moment I caught him. I caught him taking 3 days off to
I know that's, I mean, he's not thinking of the consequences of anything. Just, oh, I'm going to ring in sick. Like,
do you know what's funny? So my mate, about a year later, was at a wedding in Cork, and I think she was just doing like dinner table chat and used this story of mine about how I ended up living with this
guy,
this
from
crazy
Cork.
guy, Rodge. And so let's say his surname's O'Brien. It wasn't, but the person at the table was like, Rodge O'Brien, and Lisa was like, yeah. And they were like, oh my God, crazy Rodge. He was literally known by his name as Crazy
Right.
Rodge.
So
he was known in Cork. Can you imagine? That's in Cork. People from Cork are saying he's crazy.
Yeah, okay. So that, I don't know what to say.
So by this point, I'd had to move out. So like that was like, that's not even like one of the worst stories, but that was like regarding the flat. And then like a friend of mine was like, oh, a mate of mine really wants to move in. If you're going to give that guy notice. My friend, he's training to be a diplomat. He's Scottish. He's from Glasgow. He's really sound. This guy seemed really sound. He was training to be a diplomat. I was like, you're going to be the answer to my dreams, mate. You're a friend of a friend. You are best friends with one of my best friends' brother-in-laws, right? So I was like, there's a connection. And so what did I do, Aisling? I was like, you don't have to give me a bond.
Oh, Lesley,
I know.
did you not learn the first time?
No, because I'm stupid.
Why are you saying no to a bond? Like, to do them a favour?
He was in a flat share and needed to free his bond up, and so I was like, well, don't worry about it. And I was like, this is the moving in date. I was going to Thailand with Phil, my mate Phil. I was going to Thailand, this last minute holiday. I was, at the same time all this was going on, I was getting me heartbroken at the same time. Like I was having relationship issues of my own. Yeah. And my mate Phil was like, he was going through relationship issues, and he just phoned me up and work and was like, can you get 2 weeks off in 2 weeks? My boyfriend's just said to me he'll go on holiday with me, but only as friends. Well, I've got enough fucking friends, so he's not coming with me, so do you want to come? And I was like, yes please. And I remember speaking to my boss going, hey, I'm having all kinds of problems with my housemate, and she was like, we'll sort it out. And it was amazing. I got to go on this last minute holiday, and this guy, do you know what? I can't even remember his name now because it was in a blur of other traumas going on at the time. And this is what I'm saying. Like, you're living with these people, but you have a life and you have your own problem. You've got work, relationship, family, and then you're living with a person, and it's either going to make or break your living experience. And so I thought this guy that was coming in was going to fix it for me. But I was like, the day you're moving in, I was like, come round on Wednesday, I'll give you the keys, and then you're going to have 2 weeks to get used to the flat on your own because I'm going to be in Thailand. And he turned up on the Wednesday before I was flying on the Friday, and he was like, I'm really sorry. And I was like, what? And he was like, I can't move. This was a lawyer. I can't move in. There's some issues to do with my contract and I can't get out. It was so much bullshit. And I was so angry because I'd done it to myself in a way.
I know, it's like I haven't learned a lesson.
I haven't learned a lesson at all. I've had madness for 2 months with Rodge, and now you're doing this to me, and I'm about to go on holiday, which means I'm going to be yet again £800 down that I haven't got, right? Like, it's not, I'm not making money off that flat. Like I was paying £950 myself for this flat. So basically I was just like, and he went, I'll give you 2 weeks rent. I'll still give you 2 weeks rent. And the thing was, I had to say to him, I have to take that from you.
I know.
I don't want to take that from you, but I have to. You've absolutely shafted me. So, and I remember I could see he probably only offered me it because he knew the people. So
there was a mutual friend.
There was a mutual friend. So again, fairy godmother Ian steps in. He went to me, he's like, you go on that holiday. I will sort you out a housemate. And I was like, this is mad. I am going to just come back to someone my mate Ian is going to sort out, and I'm going to move into my flat, and this stranger's going to be there.
Random person there.
And then that's when Rena from Manchester moved in. She was all right. She was very short term, but she got me out of a hole while I took some time to try and find someone else.
Yeah, it's just stressful that, like, well, you didn't learn your lesson. You were given.
I did after that.
The universe gave you the same lesson again.
At the end of Rodge, Rodge and Podge, at the end of the experience with him, I actually went to a work counsellor. Like, I actually signed up for a counsellor and was like, and she was like, what are your issues? And she was a woman who had a daughter of her own. Yeah. And when I told her them all, she actually, instead of being my counsellor, she just sat there going, and I was wanting to be like, well, that's all really normal. But she was like, why? She said to me, here's an interesting thing. She said, why do you not think it's a good idea to offer a contract when you offer someone a room, like to get something in writing and the promise of some money? And I was like, like, it just seems like, it looks like I don't trust them. And she said, but yeah, she said, it's because you work in TV. At the time I worked in TV, I worked in news studios as a camera operator. And she said, you don't deal in contracts, you don't deal in paperwork. And you think that asking for a contract from someone else is that you're saying about that person, I don't trust you. She said, she said, but actually what it is the contract protects both of you. You both have an understanding of what is expected. You tell that person what you want, they either sign it or they say, I don't agree with that thing in that contract or whatever, but then you both sign it. And part of that contract should have been a bond that you take to protect yourself, but they also give you to make sure that you don't give that room to someone else.
Yeah. No, she's right, because I'm thinking the very first place I lived in London, I didn't have a contract, like a written document. It was the aunt of a guy from Scotland that I made friends with in the Australian outback. And my whole thing to move to London was to go to Central St Martin's, and then the fees had gone up and I got the job at Ted Baker's, so that was great, but the job wasn't going to start for a month. So I moved into this lady's house and I wasn't aware of council tax or anything, and the red flags were when my flight was cancelled from Belfast to London, and she was like, it was as if it really put her out for some reason. I don't know how it was going to inconvenience her that my flight was delayed. So I was coming the next morning instead, and I got the taxi again. Belfast, the airport's 10 minutes from my house, but London, you're talking a taxi from Luton to East Finchley. God knows how long that lasted. But I get there, the room is like slightly bigger than a single bed. Like there's a single bed in the room, a tiny fridge, and like a storage unit, a small fridge, yeah, but like a small like drink size fridge,
a drinks cabinet.
Yeah, it was awful. So I'm like, oh my God. She said to me, you're not allowed to answer the door. You're going to use the washing machine on a Thursday. And I'm like, right. And so scared. I didn't know anyone in London. Then it transpired her brother was always at the house, so I would go to do laundry, and he had his laundry in the washing machine, so I didn't even want to ask about anything. There's so many stories with that monster. I rented a room off, but I wanted out, and I said to her, I'm going to leave, I'm giving a month's notice. She put my rent up, backdated it and forward dated it to the month. And
I take it she didn't get away with that, because that doesn't sound in any way legal.
I have a friend, this older gent, he's a barrister in Belfast. He was even, I get £80 back from my deposit. I didn't know about the deposit protection scheme.
And you didn't have a contract
I had nothing.
signed?
There was nothing. So the contract, is for everybody. And my friend Keelan was raging that his aunt would have done that to me. But she was just, there was so many things happened in that house. She was awful. And she was raging that I had a job, because now I realise with council tax, she just wanted students in there because it was a council tax thing. So that's why you need like a just contract. Something for everyone. And even me having tenants here, I have a contract, but it's more for them to feel that I'm not. Basically, most of my experience have been bad landlords, so my contract is so they feel okay rather than for me, I guess. But
Aisling has done the clever thing by moving out of London and buying her own property.
Yeah.
But you've actually lived in 20 addresses, you said. I thought I had the record 19 addresses, but you, before we started this, you counted 20.
I have 20, I think. And then when we were chatting, or when you were chatting earlier, I was thinking there was another address too. It doesn't really count, so I'm not going to count it. But 20.
So what do we think? I've counted up 51 different people I've lived with since I left for school, uni.
I couldn't even bother trying to count. I don't know.
I have that weird, like a lot of my life I remember in years and dates. So like I can say, that must have been 2017 because I was living here.
Yeah.
And then I can take myself back to a festival, or like my boyfriend, he can't do that at all. You've got there's sort of like landmark moments to help you work out. It's usually addresses for me.
Addresses I can't even. I remember like eBay a few years ago, they changed their privacy settings, and they wanted my address, and it was an address from Manchester, and I couldn't remember it, so I had to set up a whole new eBay account. I couldn't pass the security clearance because I couldn't give the address or postcode or anything. I don't know. know, I've had some of the house shares with the same people, and we moved houses as well. And then
I set you up with housemate once, didn't I?
Oh yeah, Jason, he moved in. He was one of the nicest flatmates I've had.
That's when you lived in Kentish Town.
That was Kentish Town.
And you told me something about your landlord just before we did this as well that I need you to tell on this podcast.
Like, he was so sweet. I don't want to say his name, but we didn't call him by his first name, so he's Mr. S. And but he was very, very good with money, and
he kept it was very good rent for the area.
Yeah, the rent was really good. He would put the rent up by a tenner if someone moved out and someone else moved in. Now, he was very strict when you got the room. Look, he didn't want to deal with tenants coming and going. The man was in his 80s, I'd say. So he even phoned Ted Baker HR to make sure I worked there, which was a bit embarrassing for me, but I get it. When Jason moved in, because he was a male, that was a lot of trying to persuade the landlord, because he said, his words to me were, men and women don't mix well together. And I said, my experience is mixed houses are better than when it's all women. So, but one of the examples was, like, we had a really bad moth problem, and one of my flatmates was a dressmaker, but she was doing stuff for red carpet. It wasn't like she was doing
a fancy dressmaker.
Yeah, Downton Abbey, everything like that. But she had a lot of silks and really nice fabrics, so she was panicking that moths were going to eat these fabrics in the house. So we spoke to Mr. S, and he got the carpets commercially cleaned. And then it's like, no, like, we need this resolved properly. So the carpet was like a taupe colour. And he comes into the house one day with this, like, a small roll of carpet under his arm. And it was a dark, like a brown. And we were like, what's this about? And he goes, oh, I'm just going to deal with the moth problem. So he starts cutting out squares of our carpet where there was no wool left on it, and replaced it with the original. It actually was the original carpet. So the light taupe, it's just faded for so long.
So he was like doing like bicycle puncher patches.
They were bigger.
On the holes
they were bigger than that. They were like 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters, I'd say. They were big the moths the moths behind our sofa
had a full buffet.
I don't know, David Attenborough had done documentary about our sofa. It was wild. And then it's like, it was the shower situation. My hair is really, really thick. I have really thick hair, and we had such bad water pressure in the flat, and we asked Mr. S, could we get an electric shower? Could we enter the 20th century even? And he came back to us about an hour later in a text. He'd done the math. They'd calculated what our rent was going to have to go up by to get an electric shower. So we were like, do you know what? Just leave it. But I could never rinse my hair properly. I had to lie in the bath with a tap running over my head and end up getting an inner ear infection.
This is the thing with renting in London especially, but I think it's anyone who's renting. You get frightened to ask. To get anything fixed,
but because you don't here as well in Belfast. It's not just landlords. It's that they're parasitic.
I'm like, my blinds are falling down, but I can sellotape them to the. If it means that my rent doesn't go up, I'll sellotape my curtains to the wall. If I can live with the sink getting blocked every so often, if it means that you're not going to put my rent up, like your expectations of what living standards are get less and less and less, because you're like, please don't put my rent up. Like that is. Like that was the thing with that flat that you lived in with me in Wilmot Place. I did love that I was just a low key tenant. I never asked them for anything. Like I fitted a toilet seat when it needed a new toilet seat. I put a shower curtain, like anything like that. I was like, look, just ask me and I'll do it.
I wouldn't. If I was a landlord, I wouldn't want someone ringing me about stuff like that. You know, like
you know what I mean. Just like,
but like bigger things, yeah.
Well, like if your roof's leaking, you got to get it fixed.
But then I'm staying in Manchester, but they just put silicone around the leak in the ceiling in the bathroom. Like even that you couldn't. So I think I've had annoying flatmates. I've had flatmates, you know, that I don't want to name names, but one had a drink problem and we didn't know our council tax wasn't getting paid till we got a letter.
Why were you giving him the council tax money?
He looked after that.
And he was drinking it?
He was drinking it. So there was, do you know what I mean? There's things like that. Or like the same house, my bedroom was beside the kitchen, and the Scottish flatmate, we'll call it, and I loved, I don't want to say names, but I loved him too. So there was one from Doncaster, one from Scotland. So one from Doncaster had a drink problem, and like the amount of times you get a call, he was in a police cell and somewhere outside Manchester, and we'd been with him on nights out. He'd be calling me a Celtic cunt because he was so drunk, and his other friends' names, but sober, the sweetest guy in the world, like so lovely. And so then the other flatmate, the Scottish guy, like he was wanted to be an actor, and obviously like like the reality of getting an acting role was very slim. So he was doing a lot of those like charity, you know, the ones that go and sign up for a charity and guilt trip you to donate £1 to whatever. So every few months there'd be a different charity he'd be assigned to, but he would just talk to you non-stop about this charity and what they do. Say it was Greenpeace. I'm thinking, I'm not like, I don't want to hear about this every time.
I am. Well, sorry.
But he started. But then the problem was because he wasn't doing like a 9-to-5 job. I'd be getting up. I'd be doing uni all week, going to my Saturday job in the morning. And there's all these corpses lying in the living room because they've been like drinking and partying all night. And you want to scream.
I'm trying to live a normal life.
Just because you're not like.
But then hang on.
Normal life.
Then you can end up with the boring. So I went the other way from wanting the happy housemate, the fun housemate.
Yeah.
I was like, I just need average Joe. So first average Joe was someone that came to be known to me as Boring Greg. Basically, this was Greg. He would batch cook broccoli and salmon, smoked salmon, masses of it on a Sunday night, so the whole flat stank of broccoli and smoked salmon. It's really it's horrible. And then he would eat that every night, Monday to Friday, because he was like into fitness. He had decided that he needed to sort his posture out, so he always sat. Bear in mind, there's just two of us living in this flat, and he would sit on the edge of the sofa like this, like basically with his bum perched on the edge of the sofa, and then he would tell me about how good it was for you to sit like this with your back straight for your posture. And I think, please sit back and just watch some TV, except for the fact that the only thing he ever wanted to watch, and it was almost like Breaking Bad all over again, except the guy was boring and nothing else ever happened in his life. Greg only ever watched It's Only Sunny in Philadelphia. And the thing was, I liked Always Sunny in Philadelphia for a while, but then I was like, every time I come home, you're watching it and you're trying to quote it at me, but also you're in your 30s. Like, what is not like? You're not my 16-year-old little brother. Like,
but quoting at you as well.
He was like, there's always something for everyone, and It's Always Sunny. And I'm like, yeah, I know.
But I love It's Always Sunny, but I don't want to watch it all the time.
The time. He moved out, and then the last tenant in that house before I moved out, and then took a year living in the Netherlands because my boyfriend's Dutch, guys, was a girl who I don't want to name her, but because it's just sounded like we're being really mean, but it was. I'd just got a new little sofa that went under the window, this little 2-seater thing, right?
Oh yeah, I remember you getting that.
Yeah, and it was going to be my little pride and joy. And then I got this girl moved in. I'll call her Sarah. She wasn't called Sarah. So Sarah moved in, and she worked in HR, and she was a real 9-to-5er in a way that I wasn't used to because I was a shift worker. And she didn't really have a lot of friends. Her thing was eating, like she was a big eater. And she liked to just sit on that brand new sofa that I got. And because I worked most of the time later shifts, so I'd finish work 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, come home at 9 o'clock. I never got to sit on that sofa because she came home, got straight into her pajamas, straight in, 5 o'clock, doesn't matter what was happening, in her pajamas. And then I wouldn't be able to walk past her. And then I get home from work and think, I just want to make a cup of tea, but I know how the conversation's going to go, and this is where like resentment starts to kick in over like unreasonable things. So I think I'm going to walk past her now, and I want to make a cup of tea, and I am unable to just make a tea for myself without offering her one. But I hated that she had the same answer every single time. So I go, all right, mate, and she'd go, all right, mate, and then I go, how's your day? Yeah, so. It's the same, exactly.
So not really giving you anything either to go with?
Just didn't really have a lot going on in her life, right?
Yeah.
So then I go into the kitchen, I'd fill the kettle, I put the kettle on. She couldn't see my face because there's a tiny little bit of wall like jutting out from the kitchen. So I'd lean behind that wall, and then I'd go, so mate, do you want a cup of tea? And she'd say in exactly the same tone, the exact same answer, mate, why not?
Because that would become really triggering after a while.
It was so no, first time, second time, like, and the thing was, I'm just being a horrible cow there because she's not
doing anything like on paper.
She's
like
just
nothing.
She's very comfy. She thinks I'm really
harmless
friendly, and clearly I am becoming so gnarled up by the house share experience that I've had over years and years and years, especially those last few months with. We got on like a house on fire, but then you left. Then I ended up with Mad Rodge, then
Yeah,
after
I
Mad
think when
Rodge,
there's so
someone lets
many-
me down. Then I have a short-term letter in the shape of a Mancunian called Rena. She was very nice. Rena was very nice, but she was there for a short time, not a long time. And then there was Boring Greg, and then there was, I'll just say name Sarah, but it's not Sarah. And so I remember when I started dating my boyfriend, and he came around to hang out in the flat, and he kind of took me aside and he was like, I wouldn't have put you two together. Like, I wouldn't have put you two. And I was just like, look, she pays the fucking rent. Mm-hmm. She's relatively clean and tidy. She's got her life.
Like, she's harmless. Do you want it home to feel like home, or it's just a flatmate? So it's just flatmate. I wouldn't even offer making tea. Like, I'm doing my thing. So how do you live two separate? And it's the living room thing as well.
But you had to go through the living room to get to the kitchen.
That's what I mean.
And
There's
you
all,
remember I had a little dining table in there. I put some artwork up, and there was books on the shelf. It was homely, but it was homely in a hodgepodge kind of like, what can we do with the space kind of thing. And like, I do think that's when I was starting to put her out. Like, I was like, I basically got a letter from the landlord saying, oh, we need you to move out, because yet another letter of someone in London saying, oh, we need to move on because we're going to do it up and then charge way more rent for it than you're already getting.
Exactly.
And I was already thinking, I'm going to take a sabbatical from my job and try and get work over in the Netherlands. So there was a shortfall where I had to move out of that address. In the meantime, Sarah had found a boyfriend, an American, and she was already happy to move on, and like
just the time, it worked out okay.
And so then I had a month living with another friend in East London, because there was a shortfall between when I had to finish my job and when I could move over to the Netherlands for a year. So the rules about what you'll find acceptable, they do change. The outcome of your flatmate is just the same as like having a wish list before you date a man or a woman.
I know.
Like, you're like, I'd love them to do this, 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 and this, and then you end up with someone that drives you absolutely nuts. Doesn't fill all your list, but you really like them.
Yeah, I know. That's actually really true. So we shouldn't. I'm thinking in terms of dating, this ideal like tick box. Actually, are they dead on as a person?
Yeah.
Like, are we going to click?
And that's the magic sauce for house shares. So I do think, while I've had, like, there's so many flatmares. There's supposed to be called flatmares in the show. Like, we're just getting the conversation started, to be honest. So listeners, whether it's one listener, two listeners, just me listening back to myself, please get in touch. Send us your voice notes telling us about your flatmare stories. Have you lived with somebody that you caught getting inside your Cheerios? Has someone been using your Posh shampoo and you didn't like that very much? Were they a massive druggie? Did they try to take money off you? Did they have an annoying girlfriend, boyfriend, delete as required? It's all right for a first go, right? We've given it a bash. We'll get back to it. We'll refine it. But if this does make its way onto YouTube, then we would love to hear your stories. Send us an email. We're going to wrap it up now, because we're having another little reminisce, cup of tea before I get the flight back to London.
Kit Kats left. I don't think I ate them all. So
you had a good go at eating them all last night. Like, I'm glad we're not actually sharing a house now, because I'd be like, well, Aisling's changed. She's, the biscuit queen now, and I only had two.
You wouldn't have to be no biscuit
cakes.
rule in the house.
That's it for now. Thank you for joining us on Flatmare, and we will speak to you next time the landlord comes knocking. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.